Okay, so as we mentioned yesterday, John Paul was the leading surveyor on the Lycans Valley Railroad, and that's what I want you to know this was called, the Lycans Valley Railroad, only the fourth railroad in the United States, okay? And that's just a review of yesterday. In addition to the railroad, or another thought of the railroad, as we just mentioned, keep in mind that this is not locomotive, this is total horsepower, okay? Horses were pulling the cars the whole way down. And then we also have the Wiconisco Canal as well. Okay. I don't think we need to go through this again. We already mentioned this, and I just showed you the map there. All right, but once again, to reiterate what we just took a look at the very top there, let's just read it to hear it. Brady, if you would, please.
Horseshoe Curve, eighth industrial wonder of the world, helped the United States expand westward. Also the target of the German spies during World War II.
Okay. Helped with westward expansion, which of course the railroads played a key role in this. This is a primary source, all right? I'm not going to ask you to write anything down, but I think it's kind of interesting. Going back to 1834, as you can see there, all right? Austin, if you would.
Soon coal cars crossed the river via a crude car ferry to Mount Patrick on the Penn State Canal. Captain France's boat, number 76, departed on April 9th, 1834, with 43 tons of hard coal for the Columbia, PA market. Thomas Borbridge, credited with the shipment of 99 arcs of coal from the Wilkes-Barre region in 1797, purchased this first shipment of Lycans Valley coal.
Okay, and there you can see going back to the 1800s upstate, and then here we have really one of the beginnings, 1834, and that would be on the Lycans Valley Railroad. Okay, and I'm showing you this. Keep in mind over there on the right side, that is Mount Patrick. Okay, and on the left side, you can see the ferry boats. This is down in Millersburg. Okay, we'll read that story another day. All right. So the Lycans Valley Railroad, just make a quick note, it's 16 miles. I think that's, you can probably estimate that. You're looking at about 16 miles. Spike, will you read through this, please?
Lycans Valley Railroad was built 16 miles from Bear Creek Gap and was in operation in 1834, transporting coal by horsepower over the flat strap rail. Eventually, this would become.
Now, as you can see there, I threw a railroad picture in there. Now, remember, once again, I don't want to mislead you. The first coal was transported by horses. But what you're looking at is one of the locomotives that was used on the Lycans Valley Railroad. You can see that. Now, I'm going to pause here and mention this about that Lycans Valley locomotive. That locomotive was actually in a barn in the borough of Barrysburg. The guy that owned it, okay, after the railroad stopped, which, getting way ahead of myself, I'll mention this. The railroad line was taken out in about 1980. But that was taken out, the guy that had it, he had it in his barn. But he didn't tell anybody because he didn't want people to come to his house and steal it.
You steal something.
Anybody seeing a problem here?
How'd they even get it there?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you. The other problem is, think about Barrysburg and how big it actually is. If you have a locomotive in Barrysburg, I guarantee everybody's going to know about it. I knew about it before I was your age. So I'm just saying, everybody knew it was there. Unfortunately, that is actually up in a junkyard now up in New York State, and they pretty much took every piece they could to reuse it, I guess. That's a good thing, but unfortunately, we just don't have a place for it in the Elizabethville Historical Society building, things like that. But it would be cool if we could somewhere.
Should have left it in the barn.
What's that?
Should have left it in the barn.
Well, what happened is when the poor man died, his family got rid of it, is what happened. Okay. All right, so here you're seeing Millersburg once again. Here's the Wiconisco Creek where it comes in, Okay, and then you have the railroad. Here's the creek, and then the railroad goes up along the valley. This railroad is still there. The other one's not. Okay. All right. So again, let's take a look at this just to hear it. Klinger, if you would, please.
In Lewisburg, the Lincoln Valley Railroad connected to the Northern Central Railroad. This was one of the busiest points in the Union during the Civil War, and everything from freight to regular passenger trains to troop trains to prisoner trains.
Okay, I do want to mention there, and let me be clear. Yes, it was built for coal, but I also want you to know they also transported passengers. I think until the 1950s. Okay, but people were transported on this rail line also. I do want you to be aware of that. Okay. Again, coming right up along the valley. Okay, that's just another diagram of it. Let me back up here. Right about here is where Millersburg, the baseball, okay, where they play their home baseball games. That's where the ball field is. And then right up here is where the Mile Park is, to give you another reference. Okay. There's another picture of it. That's looking up along the valley. If you're standing in Millersburg looking this way, okay. Then again, you can see the one branch goes straight, the other one branches off. Many different track lines because you had some that had coal on waiting to go wherever they were going, etc.
So is that the Whitman one there?
That would be actually yes, and that's part of the Wiccanisco trestle.
That's a weird thing about that on the trees.
Yeah, and also those train cars would literally dump into the arcs, and then it would go down the canal on the left there. That's what's happening there. Okay. Just showing you this. That's the railroad bridge at Likens. Nothing I'm going to ask you to write down, but that's actually coming across the Rattling Creek. Okay. The water tower, which was essential when you had the steam engine, you had to keep replacing the water in the engines. Okay, and that's what gave them the power. And that's just right there, right as you're coming out of Likens. If you look off to the left at the mountain, that's where this was located. I just threw this in. They had an ox roast one day. Nothing to do with coal, I guess. I don't know. Seems like a rather big ox. Okay. This is the Elizabethville Railroad building. Now that building's still there. Obviously has changed over the years. Okay. Obviously has changed considerably over the years. They did have telegraph in there, etc. Okay. This would be the late 1960s, and if you go up to the square, you can literally walk straight through there. Now, over behind the rail line, you actually get into some private property, but that's Jim Fasinelli, doesn't really care too much, as long as you're on the rail line. But you can go right straight through there, the whole way up to Walmart, and keep going to the middle elementary, the whole way up to Likens. Okay, and that's the station today. But it used to stop there. And as I mentioned before, you have the shirt factory, you have Swell Wagon Company. I mean, this was a booming industrial place here. Still is. Because of metal industries. Yeah, plate screen. Yeah. Yep, still is. Now, they don't ship on the rail line, but certainly still very industrialized. There's another picture of one of the locomotives used. That's what it looks like today. Took off what they could. Okay, this is the Millersburg train station. That is still in operation. That's across the street from Max's Restaurant. That's a modern picture of it. You probably have seen that. They actually just restored that building.
Wow.
I was messing around with the sound bites. Karen, I warned you. I have no life. I mean, that's what I do.
Wow.
Oh no, wait! You haven't seen anything yet. Hang on. There's more to come. All right, Dallinger, read through this, please.
During World War II, many of the soldiers from the Lincoln Valley left from the Millersburg train station to get their ships that would arrive in Europe and Japan.
So if you lived in Elizabethville and you went to fight for your country, you probably went through the Millersburg train station. Also, I'll tell you this, the train stopped there when FDR was on it. Some of you can definitely relate to him. When he was campaigning for president in 1936, they actually stopped there. He gave a very brief speech and then went up to Selinsgrove and gave another brief speech. But that's what he did, traveling throughout the country. Plus, I got to play the soundbite again.
What?
Now, this is a what moment? Take a look at this one. See if anybody's falling for this. Ryan, if you would, please.
An alligator was used to predict the weather at the train station. If the alligator would leave the watered area and go to the sand, it would rain within the next few days. And during the winter, because of the cold climate, they would keep the alligator in the upstairs of the station.
So I'm telling you, they actually had an alligator there. What do you think of this as the weather predictor?
So that's an alligator's got in Susquehanna.
You know, I've often wondered that. What if that thing would have got loose in the Susquehanna? Probably would not have made it over the winter, but in the summer, that could have wreaked some havoc there.
There was an alligator in the Susquehanna down by the fort.
Really?
Yeah, somebody saw it in there. They think they caught it. They think it was a released pet.
That could be a little dangerous, I think.
It was just a little small one.
But what do you also think of that? If it would go to the sand, it would rain in the next few days. How accurate are we talking, Peyton?
How did they figure that out?
And how would you know what a few days is, too? Does that mean 1, 2, 5?
Alligators know what's happening, especially with the weather.
Well, I know that, but to say it's going to rain in the next few days, anybody could say that, whether we have an alligator or not. You know, it's probably going to rain in the next few days in Pennsylvania. I think we're going to agree. But nonetheless, they did have an alligator in that train station. Okay, moving on then. There's Millersburg. I showed you that picture before. There you can see in the background, that is the Berry Mountain. And you can see where to the left, where it comes up along the mountain. Again, that railroad on the right there, that one's still there. Here we go. Have you ever been on this bridge by any chance?
Yes.
God forbid you're on the bridge. Have you ever gone underneath the bridge, though? Be safe. Okay, don't be on that bridge. It's a railroad bridge. But the Mayo Park would be on your right, and that is the Wickinisco Creek. One time. Well, lots of times. But the last time I did it, it flew off and almost hit me right in the eye. That was enough for that.
That's what my
How many have done that? Isn't like the rite of passage of being a kid? Of course, we don't have the railroad anymore except for there. So, yeah. But yeah, that's been done.
my great grandparents lived. To be fair, it goes up north. But my mom and my uncles as well. And it's north on that stuff. So it was right across the street.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yes. Okay, there's your Mayo Park in Millersburg, and this would be part of the Wickinisco Canal. Draw your attention to the picture on the right. You see the cinder block / wall. That's actually 200 years old. That's going back to the Wickinisco Canal, and they're still there. After all this flooding and all the years, that's still there.
Quite more of it covered up all the dirt.
It is, but I still think that's pretty impressive that it's still there. But that's part of the Wickinisco Canal. All right, Oakdale Station. I want to mention this. That was another train stop, okay? Train station. It is small. The only thing they really delivered there was mail. But that's right behind the middle school. It stopped there, delivered mail, and that was about it. At the same time, I do want you to know this guy's name, John P. King. Okay? Do know the name, John P. King. As I mentioned, the coal cars, they also carried passengers. Now, the primary purpose was coal, but they did carry passengers from Wickinisco the whole way down to Millersburg, or actually Williamstown down. John P. King, and this happened between Loyalton and Likens. Rather sad story. Obviously, you can see he's buried. 34 years old when he died. Let's take a look at this. At this time, the circus was in town, and John P. King was one of the workers on the circus. I came through the valley. Okay. Going back to 1882. Peyton, if you would, please.
Accident to crisis.
Circus.
Circus employees. Harrisburg, July 16th. Edward McKinley, Thomas King, and another man, all employed of a circus company, were riding from Millersburg to Lycans today, seated in the door of a
Boxcar. You're right.
car with their legs hanging out. In the passenger, a siding near Lycans, the legs of McKinley came in contact with a car, and he was thrown with great force against his two companions, and all three were knocked
From the train. Yep.
King fell under the car and was instantly killed. McKinley had a heel crushed, and the third man, whose name could not be learned, was badly bruised.
Now, when it says they came in contact with a car, that's another train car. It was actually parked off to the side. See, sometimes along the railroad, they would have side tracks. Okay, like if one's loaded, but you're going this way, they'll wait till you go by, and then we can go this way. That's where that phrase comes. I got sidetracked. You got off the main track. We use it as train of thought. Well, what happened is this train was so close, and since they were sitting there in the boxcar with their legs hanging out, they came in contact with that one, and they were knocked off. Unfortunately, King was, not to sound barbaric or graphic, but he was actually cut in half and killed instantly. What happened is a group of people, the man didn't have any money, but they got together and actually bought a tombstone for him. He's actually buried up in Wiccanisco Cemetery. Okay. And that picture I took right there at the Wiccanisco Cemetery. Sad story. Happened just on this side of Lycans, just before you cross the Rattling Creek going into Lycans. Okay. All right, our next topic will be then on the Wiccanisco Canal, which we'll get to tomorrow. Have a good day.
All I'm saying is I am not the one who's selling your pencils. I always sharpen too.
Well, they're there for people to use. I just like if you put them back. But
That's funny.
hey, when they're out, when they're gone, they're gone.